I'm trying to record this. People have asked for these recorded. Sometimes I try to record them all. It usually doesn't work. I don't know why. Something's going on with Google. We're going to start in a minute. So welcome all. I hope you can all see my screen. Okay. People are still coming in, but we're going to start. Okay, so welcome. Right, we had live meetings every month for over a year until COVID started. The place that we have is still not open, believe it or not. So we've had 17 virtual meetings. Right, I used to do 2 a month in the middle of COVID, and we're doing 1 a month. And we're doing live meetings again, which we'll talk about at the end, but just a quick peek kind of meetings at a project that I'm working on. So it's our 17th virtual meeting. Welcome. Just a quick today's agenda. So just the first 2 minutes introduction. People don't know who I am. Next 3 minutes are really what's going on in the market. The next 30 to 40 minutes, might even go longer, is going to be an overview of how to buy your first deal, which is a question that I always hated, but I get asked it all the time, so I'm going to go into it today on an overview, kind of a 30,000-foot view. And the last 5 minutes will be how I can help you, and then there'll be Q&A, and we'll go until 7:30 if the questions keep coming. If there are no questions, we'll end early. That is the agenda for today. Okay, so first, who am I? I can't even see the whole damn thing. Let me see. Maybe I move this. So my name is Michael Pinter, and I bought my first house in Long Island in 1996. I've been a full-time real estate investor since 2013. I had been doing it part-time before that. I had 17 years in the mortgage business or real estate finance experience, and at the same company that is still around. And the first 4 years that I did this, I was buying at auctions and fixing and flipping. We're going to talk about more about what that means today. The last 5 years, I've been marketing direct to sellers and then either rehabbing or wholesaling or wholetailing. Just to say what that means, rehabbing is going to be what we're going to talk about today, fix and flipping. That means buying a property, doing serious renovation to it, and then selling it to a retail buyer. Wholesaling is where you buy something cheap enough that you can just go into contract and then assign the contract to somebody else who's probably going to fix and flip it themselves, or maybe they'll rent it, they'll do something else to it, but a cash buyer. And wholetailing, which I'm doing a lot of lately, is buying a property and doing very little work to it, or no work to it, and then selling it to a retail buyer. My office is in Hewlett. Anybody come by to see it, just make an appointment. I really operate almost all in Nassau County and just a little bit of Southwest Nassau. I did over 35 deals last year, which was a bad year for me, with about half of them wholesale, where I never took title. I just assigned them, and the other half was I did take title. I either rehabbed it or wholesale it. But 2021 is looking much better than last year. So just a recap of this REIA, this Nassau County Real Estate Investors Association. We've been around for 21 months, so more than 80 members have come to the office. Many have brought deals that I co-wholesaled with. Several have bought wholesale deals from me, and several members have borrowed from me on their flips. So let's talk about the current market situation. I am constantly shocked how strong the market is. I really thought the market was going to take a dump a while ago, and I think it will go down at some point, but it is so smoking hot right now. Prices are at all-time highs, and it's really a good time to be selling properties to anybody. This is going to change eventually. We just don't know when or how much it's going to change, right? There are many buying opportunities today for real estate investors, especially tired landlords. There's a lot of landlords out there who are not getting rent and are interested in getting rid of their property to somebody who will buy it. If somebody calls me and they have a non-cooperative tenant, I get very excited because I know that A, they can't sell at retail, and B, most investors are not going to buy it, but I will. So business has definitely picked up. March looking very good. I only turned on all my marketing channels in September because COVID really made it hard. So now I'm doing direct mail, RVM, which is ringless voicemail, cold calling, texting, and some pay-per-click a little bit. I'm dabbling in that. Okay, so people always ask me, how do I know the real estate market's going to go down? It always goes down, right? Real estate is always cyclical. There's hundreds of billions of dollars that are gone from the economy. Everything is being propped up right now by government stimulus. I believe the stock market and real estate market are all one event away, like an interest rate rise or some kind of negative report from taking a downturn. And I think everybody should. Can you see the bottom of my screen? Can you see the last line, or is it blocked off? I don't know if I can see it. Wish I can fix this. Okay. There, it's better. Oh, that's worse.
Michael, the last line is hit them hard and start a down cycle.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, I can see that line. It says
Okay,
hit
good.
them hard and start a
Good. I
down
can't see it
cycle.
on mine. It's because of my bar. Okay. So these are some of the articles that are coming out. I just saw this in CNN that people are starting to realize that housing market concerns begin to emerge. There are things going on in the housing market that are showing it's just too hot. This is, to me, in some ways, very similar to 2007, 2006, when I was in the mortgage business, and we would look at each other and say, this is not sustainable, right? Anybody can get a loan. You didn't really need to show income, assets. It's not the same situation because that was a created situation by Wall Street where anybody can get 100 loans even with no income, no asset, no job. That's not what's going on now, but it's still way too high. Like the market just continues to go up. And the same kind of thing that landlords are getting screwed, right? This eviction moratorium has really hurt a lot of local landlords, and it's going to have ripple effects on the housing market for sure. There are a lot of landlords who are thinking about just walking away from their properties, which is a lot. That part is similar to what happened in 2007, 2008, where people didn't put any money into their property and then just walked away. And now landlords who are completely helpless against this eviction moratorium is causing people to say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here anymore. I'm laying out money every month and I'm not getting any money, and I don't know when I'm going to get money. Right? It's just not the same situation. And we already in New York were dealing with longer times to evict than before, and now I don't know how long it's going to take to evict. So today's topic is, how do you buy your first house to do your first deal? Now, I've been active on social media for about 2 years, and I used to think that people would ask bad questions and I just wouldn't answer them. And I always thought of this as a bad question because how do you get your first deal is a very, very general question. It really depends on a lot. What do you want to do with your deal? Do you want to wholesale? Do you want to fix and flip it? Those are the two channels we're going to take today. But there's a lot of questions, right? What kind of resources do you have? Do you have any money? Do you have time? Are you interested? Do you have knowledge? Do you have all these things? So I'm going to do a high-level analysis of really what you should be doing to get your first deal, right? And if you're starting out, what I'm talking about today and getting educated are really the only things you should be focusing on, because I talk to people every week who are suffering from paralysis by analysis. They just are overwhelmed with the information they get, and they never actually do anything. So I'm going to talk about what you actually should be doing to get your first deal if you haven't done it. So before we start, I'm going to talk about, I've done everything I'm about to explain to you how to do it, but this is an overview of what I teach and how I do business, but you don't have to do anything that I say, right? So, but also feel free to take notes on any issue that you might have a question on and give me topics maybe that I can talk about later and answer questions, or that I can do a future REIA meeting on. So there's really two types of deals, the way I look at it. There's buying a house to fix and flip, and there's getting a house under contract to wholesale to another buyer. So just as an overview, the first 4 years, as I said, I only bought houses to fix and flip. I didn't understand the concept of wholesaling. I thought wholesalers were knuckle-dragging Neanderthals who were trying to middle themselves in a deal. And every house I bought, I got renovated, right? If I didn't replace a bathroom, it would bother me, right? And about 5 years ago, I realized I just could not scale the business. I was buying at auctions, and I could not control how much I was buying. So I switched to marketing direct to seller, and I've been doing that for 5 years, and I'm a much happier person now that I'm doing that. So we're going to talk about these two things, right? The first 4 years I was in business and the last 5 years I was in business. And we're going to talk about how to get your first deal if you want to buy a house to fix and flip, or how to get a deal if you want to get a house under contract to wholesale to another buyer. So really, what's the difference? So you can buy a house to flip that's listed on the MLS. It's difficult, but it happens. You can buy it at a live auction or an online auction, also difficult. Or you can get it from a wholesaler, which is easier. But it's a simpler thing because you're paying a higher price. Remember, when you're wholesaling, you have to buy it at a deep enough discount that there's a spread between what you're paying and what a fix and flipper or a landlord is going to pay for it. If you're actually buying the house to fix and flip yourself, you can pay more. We're going to get into some of the formulas on that later. But getting a house on the contract at a price that's low enough to make a profit when you sell it to a fix and flipper, it almost always has to be done by dealing directly with the seller. And this usually takes a lot of time for marketing, the follow-up, making offers and negotiations. So it's really a different way to think about it. So we're going to talk first about buying a house to fix and flip. So step one is really to know a market, right? To recognize what prices make sense for you to buy and for you to sell. or expect to sell them for after you're done with work. You have to learn that market. I actually did a YouTube video today about knowing a market, how you know it, but I'm not going to get into the details now. But you got to have some idea of what the hell you're doing, right? You can't just buy a house in some city, in a city you never heard of, and know what the hell you're going to pay. So you really got to learn what are crappy houses going for, usually to investors, and what are fully redone houses going for. Step 2 is really to start looking for houses for sale. I would look first on the MLS. I would look at online, and eventually we're going to have live auctions again. And you got to make offers to buy them. That's really step 2, right? Step 3 is to get an idea of estimating repairs. This is not going to be easy in the beginning. You're going to have to talk to contractors, but you really should only talk to contractors who work with investors. Because in general, most contractors who work with retail remodels are going to quote you a very high price. And they are going to build in a lot of profit for them. And they are going to do a job that may be amazing, but is not what you're looking for. You need to pay discounted prices on your renovations, and you need to find contractors who either renovate properties themselves or work with other investors. Better if they work with other investors. So you're going to need money if you want to fix and flip a house, right? You're going to need 20 to 30% of the purchase price. You're going to need closing costs on the purchase, which are not small in New York. You got to figure sometimes between $8,000 and $15,000 on the purchase price, depending on what the purchase price is. You're going to have enough money to make monthly payments on the loan. We're going to talk about what loan that is in a second. And you're going to need some money to get the contractor started. So this all assumes that you're going to take a hard money loan and borrow 70 to 80% of the purchase price and all renovation costs. There are some places that are back to 90%. So then you only need 10%, but they may not lend it to you on your first deal, and they probably won't. Some might, but most lenders really, before COVID, 90% was the norm. A lot of them pulled back. Some of them have come back to 90, but they may not want to give it to you on your first deal. That's something you can get later. You're going to need this money. I mean, this could easily be $100,000. It could be 80, it could be 120. So this is really what stops most people from buying a house to fix and flip, because they don't have access to this money and they think they're never going to get it. Now, the truth is, this money doesn't have to be yours, right? So I did one deal and then I ran out of money, right? Couldn't sell it right away, and I wanted to do more deals. So I went to private people who had a lot of money, and I said, I want you to fund this gap. I want you to be my equity partner, and you're going to give me the money between the hard money and the total expenses, and I'm going to give you a share of the profits, right? And the first guy, the guy gave me $1 million, and I made a ridiculously good deal for him. He got 70% of the profits. I was so desperate and so excited to get that money that I did that. Now, eventually I got better deals with people, but it hurt a lot when I sold the property, because I had to pay back a hard money lender, a huge chunk of interest, and then I had to give a huge chunk of the profits to these equity partners. But the truth is, it got my business going. And if I didn't do that, I don't know if I needed to give 70%, but I had 50-50 splits, that kind of thing. And it got my business going, and it grew my business, and it allowed me to do, I didn't have to worry about deals, because I knew I really didn't have to put up any money for the deals. So you can also just give that gap investor or a lender a preset rate of return on their investment. That's what I probably should have done at some point. And then it's not going to be as bad when you sell a property. But you need to, so you don't have to have the money yourself, but you need to have access to it from somewhere. I didn't really get into it because I've done a whole nother class on this, but there's something called the self-directed retirement account. There's like trillions of dollars in retirement accounts. So there are people, I'm sure that everybody who's watching this knows, that have a couple $100,000 in a retirement account, and it's in a stock market, which is at its all-time high, and it's probably going to get slammed and screwed at some point. It's very easy and not expensive, a few $100 to deal with a self-directed company. I've used Specialized Trust, but there's a lot of companies out there. You take that retirement account, and it could be anything: 401k, IRA, a Roth IRA, a SEP-K, a single K, all these, anything, and you can take that and you can self-direct it, which means you for a few $100, this company will get everything that's in your account, and then you can do whatever you want with it. And you can absolutely invest in real estate with it, completely 1,000% legal. The IRA can either buy the property, or the IRA can lend to the entity that buys the property. So that's a very, very easy way for a lot of people to get the capital if they want to buy a house to fix and flip. So you're going to have to offer a number that allows you to make money and leaves room for error, right? The age-old formula you'll hear all the time is 70% of the ARV, which is the after repair value minus repairs. In our area, if you can bid that 70% of ARV, but you're probably not going to be the best offer if that's the case, where we have ARVs of upward of $400,000 or $500,000. So most of the people teaching the 70% rule are in areas where the median home price is $100,000, $150,000. So you need $30,000, $40,000 gap in case something goes wrong and to make some kind of profit. But in our area where everything's selling for $500,000 or more today, you got to be closer to 80% because that $100,000 is going to be your cushion. That'll be your profit and that'll be your cushion in case things go wrong and cover your holding costs, that kind of crap. And I know tons of fix and flippers who are at 80% today. And we're going to talk about when we wholesale, why you can shoot for that 80% when you sell it to a fix and flipper. So again, I've spoken to a bunch of fix flippers that are at 80% without a doubt today. So just understand, if you're competing with them when you make an offer for a house to fix and flip, if you're sticking to the 70% and they're coming in at 80%, they're going to get the deal because they're going to be a lot higher than you. So really the hardest part about fixing and flipping a house, to me, is deciding what work needs to be done and what doesn't, right? We all have this misconception, we're going to buy this house, it's going to be a complete knockdown, gut job piece of crap. And I'm just going to go in and demo everything. Now, the truth is, for the first 4 years, that's how I looked at every house. I was a moron, right? Because very often, there are things that aren't so bad, right? You can look at a kitchen that's 20 years old, and it might just need to paint the cabinets or change the countertop. That's a lot cheaper than replacing the cabinets. They might have newer appliances. Maybe they don't match, and you just change one. You might have a bathroom that's not so bad. And something I've done with a bunch of bathrooms, there's a lot of houses in our area where there's like really ugly color tile, like a pink, a green, a yellow tile. If the house is okay and the tile work is still good, plumbing's good, I'll just go in and reglaze the tile. So deciding what to do and what not to do is not a simple thing. To me, it was the hugest pain in the ass. And I always what's the word I'm thinking about? Second guess myself after I did it. Should I have done that? Should I have done that? The second hardest part, and this could be the hardest part, if the house is a disaster, is making sure your contractor is doing the job correctly. That's not an easy thing, okay? I went through a lot of contractors, and I had contractors who were amazing on the first deal and then a disaster on the next job. I had contractors who could do one job at a time perfectly and begging me for more. The second I gave them more than one job at a time, they could not deal with it. Contractors are not easy, and I'm not going to get into how to find a contractor. I've been through that. It's not an easy question to answer. So I really hated both of those things. I hated managing contractors, and I hated figuring out what I'm going to do or not. It's one of the reasons why I prefer wholesaling, but we're going to talk more about wholesaling versus fix and flipping soon. So understand, construction work will always cost more and take longer than anybody predicts, right? Even if they put in a cushion. I've never, well, I can't say never. On a few occasions, it's been on budget and on target for the date, but it's very rare, right? Things just come up, right? Things you didn't anticipate come up. Getting a certain fixture or a piece of materials isn't available at the time. These things just are inevitable. So whatever you think it's going to take, you should cushion it so that you are ready for the nightmare that is most construction work. So we're talking about, this is really the major benefits of fixing and flipping over wholesaling are that you usually make more money when you flip a house, right? I think almost every single property I've wholesaled, and I've wholesaled a lot, the guy made more money than me when he finished the work. I'm 100% fine with that, and I hope he does, right? Sometimes they made a lot more than me. Guys have made 4 times what I've made. But I'm fine with that because they took on the risk and they waited to get that money. But if you're going to fix and flip, you're going to make good money. Most fix and flips today are going to make, $60, $70, $80, $120,000 is not difficult to make on a lot of good fix and flips today. On wholesale, I average $30,000 on a wholesale deal. It's much easier to get a deal if you're going to fix and flip because you're going to pay fix and flipping prices. And if something's open to the public at an auction, online auction, or on an MLS, for example, you're going to be able to pay a lot more than somebody who wants to wholesale it. So also another advantage is you're going to have verifiable results when you're finished, right? But the major drawbacks of fix and flipping is you need capital, right? You need money to do it. And it takes a lot longer to get paid. A lot longer, right? I didn't do really the converse of this slide when we talk about wholesaling, but obviously those are the advantages and disadvantages, right? You don't need a lot of money to get started wholesaling. You get paid right when the deal closes. There's no clock ticking on how much interest you're going to pay and how much taxes you're going to pay, right? When you close on a house to fix and flip, the day you close, the clock is ticking. Every day it's costing you money. It's costing you, if you borrowed money, it's costing you interest. taxes are accruing every single day. You got to pay insurance every single day. You got to pay for landscaping in the spring. You got to pay for snow removal in the winter. Anything breaks, you got to fix it. That's just the way it is. When you wholesale, it's somebody else's problem. And I talk about a friend of mine I have in Kansas City, Kansas. This guy's Jason Dean. He has a huge business. I mean, he does, I think, 20 deals a month in Kansas City. And he does not close on anything. And he wholesales to a guy a big chunk of his thing, maybe 8 deals a month, who only wholesales them, who doesn't do anything to them, just puts them on the market. So I met him at a mastermind I'm at, and I go, why the hell don't you just wholesale it, right? You're leaving all the money on the table. And what he said to me, I will never forget. He goes, because I don't own shit. He goes, if a meteor hits Kansas City tomorrow, I don't give a shit. He goes, I don't have to get insurance. I don't have to call for a landscaper. I don't have to deal with anything. I don't have to worry about vandalism. And I understand it. I'm not saying I agree with it. I probably would wholesale those deals myself, but I understand it. This guy sits on a beach in Belize, probably 6 months a year, in a mansion he just built. And he has no worries, right? He doesn't have to worry about anything, right? If there's a riot in Kansas City, if Kansas City burns down, he doesn't care. So it's an advantage, right? I like wholesaling for that reason. I like closing, getting a wire the day after or 2 days after, and not having to worry what happens with that property. And I'm willing to give up a chunk of potential profit to do that. That's my opinion. You don't have to do that. So we'll start with the attorney process. So a lot of people don't understand. So if you're getting your information about how to do any of this stuff from anybody, I think, but me, I think I'm the only guy teaching how to do it in New York, you're going to be told a lot of bullshit about how this whole works. So I'd say the 3 of the most popular questions I get are, how do I find an investor-friendly title company? How long of an inspection contingency should I put on my contract? And where do I get a copy of a contract that you use? So all 3 of those don't apply in New York, because what happens in New York is that the transaction process on all real estate does not take place between a buyer and a seller. It takes place between a seller's attorney and a buyer's attorney. So when a seller says yes to your price, that starts the attorney process. And you need to have a good attorney, right? Do not use your cousin. Do not use somebody who's got a lot of real estate experience. And you've got to be very careful if you want to wholesale that somebody who has done a wholesale assignments of contract before. I would say that of all the attorneys in New York who do real estate, and there are probably thousands, less than 2% have ever done an assignment of contract. They understand the concept because they learned it in law school, but they don't do them. So the second an attorney says something to you like, why would you do that? You don't need to do that. Oh, it's dangerous. I would hang up the phone and never speak to that guy again. I use an attorney who's done assignments, right? If you need an attorney, you can use my attorney. He's got an office in Queens and in Long Island, and I assign whatever I can, and it's a beautiful thing. So do not in any way listen to an attorney tell you can't assign. Oh, it's illegal. Ridiculous things to say. So once the seller and buyer agree, that starts the process. Now, the actual contract is generated and created by the seller's attorney. You cannot bring a contract to a appointment, push it across the table with a check for $100, as many people teach on the internet, and be in contract. You will not be in contract. That is not an enforceable contract. If that guy decides to sell it to somebody else, he's going to have no problem. You're going to have to literally litigate, and you're going to have a very, very thin leg to stand on, because they're going to say, why wasn't this guy represented? In New York, standard real estate transactions have representation. And I don't want to get into this, but I have done deals where the seller did not have an attorney, and they were not easy for me. They were more work for me, and I wouldn't recommend them. So there's always going to be negotiation between the attorneys. The attorneys are going to get $2,000, $3,000, some of these guys charge $4,000 to do a contract and a closing. They got to feel like they earn their fees, and they feel like they have to justify it. So they are going to bullshit over the stupidest wording in the contract that you ever saw in your life. The dumbest thing. So that process is going to take. That can take a couple of weeks. It can take a couple of months. So especially if the attorney is not not good at communicating with the seller, these things happen. And this is by far one of the biggest differences between New York and the other 49 states. So there is no such thing as an investor-friendly title company, because title companies do not run the transaction in New York. They are simply service providers. They don't know jack shit about investor-friendly or non-friendly. They're there simply to make sure the taxes are paid and the liens are paid off. By the way, that's the reason why you can't do subject to in New York, because no title company is going to allow a mortgage to stay on a transaction. But there is no inspection contingency in New York, because all inspections get done before the contract gets signed, because the high and mighty attorneys do not want to create a contract create a contract that a buyer can just walk away from. So anytime that I sell a property retail, I'm doing a couple right now, after we agree on a price, that's when the inspection gets done. And the attorney, and then any repairs that are required, they put it in as addendum to the contract. That's how it happens in New York. It does not happen that way in the other 49 states. In the other 49 states, you go to contract, then you go, give me 2 weeks to do an inspection. Because it's the whole process is there's no attorney involved. In New York, that doesn't happen. So there's no inspection contingency in New York. I don't use a contract because the seller's attorney is going to prepare it. And there's no such thing as an investor-friendly title company. You need an investor-friendly attorney to represent you. Okay, so that's the attorney process. Now we're going to talk about wholesaling, right? A lot of people are more interested in wholesaling. We're definitely going to go more than 45 minutes on this whole thing. So you almost certainly need to buy the house directly from a seller, right? If you want to get it cheap enough to wholesale. So the step one is to get a list of potential sellers. I'll tell you, there's only three places I would go to get a list. ListSource, Listability, those are list providers, and PropStream. I use Listability and PropStream. I used to use ListSource a lot. I found Listability's data to be a little bit better than ListSource. That was my experience. ListSource is cheaper. We'll talk about these in a second. So, talking about lists. Most niche lists that you're going to hear about on the internet, right? Tax delinquent list, code violation list, water shutoff list. These things are not available in my area, right? They're hard to get in most places in New York. New York sees what most other states, not all, but most other states see as public information as a privacy issue. So, it's not easy to get niche lists. I generally get broader lists. So here are 3 examples of lists. These lists are all available on Listability. Older people that are living in the house a long time, absentee owned and or vacant houses, or people in economic distress. You can get all of these from Listability. I think you can get them on PropStream also. So in my opinion, Listability data seems the best. ListSource is almost as good and it's a little cheaper, but I figure most of these lists are going to last you 4 to 6 months. Data is good for. So to me, to spend a couple of $100 more over 4 to 6 months, if the data is better, if it gets me one extra deal every 2 years, it pays for itself 1,000 times over. So I believe very strongly you should start with a list of around 10,000. Right? I talk to people all the time who tell me I did this and it didn't work. And I talk to them and they go, I had a list of 312 people and nobody wanted to sell. No shit. You can't work with a tiny little list. It doesn't tell you anything. It's just not big enough of a data source to see what's going on. So you're not going to be happy if you work with a small list. Everybody dreams of getting a list and getting a deal from it. If you need to work with big numbers and you need to think of long term. So I think 10,000 is a pretty good number. Again, a list of 10,000 should last you 4 to 6 months, even 8 months. You want the data to really stretch. If you work with a small list, you're not going to know whether that list was bad or it just wasn't big enough. A list of 10,000 will cost about $350 with ListSource and about $550 with Listability. But these numbers assume you use my code, which anybody can use, to get my prices. Because if you just go to ListSource right now, you'll get a price of like $3,000. But if you use I can get it for you for like a few hundred. And Listability also, if you use my code, you get much better prices. Because I still order from these people. I still order from ListSource. So another thing about lists is PropStream. So PropStream is a great service, and it's got a huge advantage over those in that PropStream's main function is to comp out properties nationwide. And they used to stink in New York, but over the last couple of years, they've gotten much better. Now, the best way to comp out properties is to have multiple listing service, MLS access, right? And I recommend that everybody who is in this business gets licensed, but that's another topic. But if you don't have MLS access, the only way you should be comping out properties is with PropStream. If anybody is doing this business and using Zillow or Trulio or free resources online, I can almost guarantee you're going to get screwed bad because those services use algorithms that work great in very homogeneous areas like Port St. Lucie, Florida, and Carrollton, Texas. Properties where the range of properties is going to be between $60,000 and $150,000, and it's easy for them to figure out based on square footage. Guess what? Square footage doesn't mean shit in New York. I can't tell you how many people have asked me about square footage and price per square foot. We don't use that calculation in New York because it's not required on our listings. So on 99% of the comps you're going to look at, you're not even going to know the actual interior square footage. It's not like that in the rest of the country. In the rest of the country, square footages are required on every single listing. So it's easy to price out things per square foot. But here, you need to look at the condition, you need to look at the style, you need to look at what's going on in the pictures. That's why MLS is great. And PropStream really gets a lot of the MLS data, and PropStream's gotten much better. I would say PropStream is 85 to 90% as good as the MLS. So it's $97 a month, and it'll also allow you to download 10,000 addresses a month. So obviously, just sheer numbers, it's going to give you a lot more data for bang for the buck, and it's going to give you this additional ability to compound properties, which you're going to need if you're ever going to make an offer. So also, if you have my code, you get 10% back. So if you have to keep it for 3 months before you get it back. So, and you can cancel the service anytime. So you can, in theory, you can get $97, run a list of 10,000, don't do it. 6 months later, you can sign up again and pay $97 if you want to do it that way. But again, if you don't have MLS access, you probably want to keep it just so you can compound properties. So step one is to get this list, right? So you pay for it from list source or listability, or you get PropStream and you download it, and then you got to skip trace the list. So the list we just discussed is only going to have names and addresses. That's it. And this is fine if you want to mail to it, but mail gets expensive. And I would not in any way recommend to anyone that they should mail to anything less than 6 or 7 times. So you get a list, you mail it once, mail it twice, you're almost certainly going to get a crappy result. But when you mail, and I don't know why, I mean, there's reasons, psychological reasons, but when you mail a list 6 or 7 times, then you really find out if it's a good list or not. People need to be touched multiple times by you. And every list that I buy, I mail every single month. I call, I RVM, which is a ringless voicemail, drop it a ringless voicemail in their voicemail box, and I text them. I hit them a million ways. So they have been touched a million times. Now, you've also got to understand, most sellers that are going to sell at a discount have some kind of issue, okay? Most of them are not, how do I put this correctly? Most of them don't want to face their problems right away. So the idea that you're going to send them a postcard or call them once or text them once and they're going to say, yeah, I really want to sell, really doesn't work. And New York is vastly different. It's another difference in New York. People don't look at real estate in New York as this liquid asset like they do in other places. In most states, if someone's in a jam, maybe they're in foreclosure, maybe they just need money, they could sell their house in a week. In New York, everybody that bought a house knows it's a long, agonist process that takes forever, that attorneys are involved in. And people that are in a jam are not really looking to get it. They don't look at their real estate as this liquid asset that I can turn into cash quickly. So the general mentality in New York makes everything take longer, and it also makes the marketing process take longer too. You need to touch people multiple times. So I mail everything 6 or 7 times. So what that means, if you have a list of 10,000, you're going to mail a postcard. I mean, it's $4,000. It's 40 cents a postcard after postage. It's $4,000 every time. So if you're not going to, if you want to take a small niche list on PropStream with a few hundred and mail that 6 or 7 times, that makes sense. But most people are not going to mail because it's a $24,000 commitment. So the cheapest way is to skip trace the list. Skip tracing is this process where you get phone numbers for people, and then you're going to call or text them, which we'll get to in a second. So there are many good and bad skip tracing providers. Do not use anonymous guys on Fiverr, right? I spoke to people who said, oh, I skip traced this guy on Fiverr, and the data sucked. I'm like, no shit, it sucked. It's probably crappy data. And this is coming from someone who didn't know the difference between good data and bad data at the beginning. I used to get data from Data Zap with 2 Ps, which was 5 cents, and it was terrible data. So you got to use a good skip trace provider, right? I use SkipForce, right? It's only 8 cents a hit, which means I have to get at least one phone number from it. They don't charge me if I don't. And their data is amazing. So anyone who wants to use them can send me a list, and I'll be happy to charge them the same price I pay. If you want to use SkipForce, then you got to pay $100 a month or something. I don't know what price they'll give you. So there are a bunch of other good ones, right? Batch skip tracing is good. IDI, which I think Batch uses IDI. IDI resells their data to a lot of other providers. They're very good. But they're at least 15 cents a hit, right? But do not cheap out on this. Remember, if this is a list that's going to last you 6 months, the difference between getting good data and bad data is a few $100s. And that can mean the difference between getting somebody on the phone who's going to sell to you and not getting anybody on the phone. So skip tracing is really step 2. The first is to get a list. The second is to skip trace the list. I am not going to get into the questions yet. We'll get to it later. Okay. So the third is actual marketing. So the last meeting, I talked about marketing in depth, all the different channels and things. I'm not going to get in depth here, but I'll talk a little bit about it. So, and it was not recorded, unfortunately. So I'm not going to go that deep into it, but the absolute least expensive marketing methods are calling or texting from your phone. I think everybody who has a cell phone has unlimited calling and unlimited texting today. If you don't, you should get a new plan. It's going to take a lot of time to do this, right? For marketing, you either have to spend money or you have to spend time, one or the other. But you could also pay for a predictive dialing system such as Mojo, Call Tools, or ZenCall to make calls. We'll talk about what those are. So I use ZenCall. They all cost about $100 a month for each person who uses it. And what a predictive dialer lets you do is to connect to a lot more people in the same amount of time, because it dials several numbers at one time, up to 10, and then it only connects you when somebody answers and says hello. So it's a tremendous time saver, right? We all think, okay, that saves me some time. No. Every time, if you're dialing manually with a phone, even on your cell phone, and you are literally looking up the phone number and typing it in and then waiting for somebody to pick it up, it is a tremendous time waster, right? To push dial on one of these dialing systems and just sit there with a headset and wait to talk to people, I think it's about 5 times more efficient. So if you can afford one, I highly recommend them. You pick up 5 to 10 times as much efficiency. Again, I like ZenCall. But they're all Mojo is probably easier to use. It doesn't matter, but if you're calling, you want to think about spending that money to reach more people in the same amount of time. Now, if you want greater efficiency for texting, right, you can use a texting. So Batch has a texting system. Lead Sherpa was the original texting system. Launch Control. I use Launch Control. I think the cheapest you can get in there is like $250 a month. Mostly gonna be like $500 a month, but I'm a big fan of them because if you're just texting on your phone, first of all, they're going to get your cell phone number, which you don't want because people are going to drive you crazy. But also, it's very hard to keep track, right? You're going to miss texts. How many texts can you see on one screen? If you're texting 150 people and 20 of them respond, 10 of them are going to tell you to go to hell. 10 are going to tell you, ask who are you? And one is going to say, hey, I'm interested. You need to find that text right away. So in Launch Control, you can easily see unanswered messages right away, and you can respond with a quick response, so everything is saved. Because basically, people ask the same 5 or 6 questions every time after the initial text. So this will be a much more efficient factor by more than 10 if you want to text a list. So the question, what do you say? So the message to the targets, right? I consider somebody on a list that I buy a target, right? They're not anything other than a target. They're always the same message, right? I'm a buyer. In your area, you could say. And I was wondering if you were thinking of selling. That's the basic message. You do not want to say, hey, I'm buying all cash. I'm going to close in 2 days. Sell me your house. That is a stupid method. And believe me when I tell you, 9 out of 10 other guys who are doing this, if there are 10 other guys who are doing it, are going to say that message. Just close, 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 close. Most sellers have no idea what a cash buyer is. And many of them are going to get terrified by the idea of you closing quickly, right? Some don't have any place to go, right? They know they need to sell, right? They can't afford the house, for example, but they don't have any place to go. You call them and say, I'm going to close in 2 days. You might as well tell them that they're going to live on the street. So I have absolutely, by a huge margin, bought more houses from people who wanted a lot of time and flexibility on the closing date from me than I have bought people who really wanted to close fast. I have bought houses people need to close fast, but I would say much more from people that just didn't want to be on a buyer's timeline. That was their main issue, right? They just didn't have any place to go yet. We're looking for a place. Most of the time they moved quickly. It didn't look like I waited forever. But I always say to them, I'll close whenever you want. That can be quick or that can be slow. I'm not going to kick you out. For a lot of people, that is the one thing they want to hear. And if they know that if they list it on the MLS and find a buyer, that guy might need to get his kids into school at a certain time, or that guy might have a deadline. So don't ever say, I'm a cash buyer, I'll close in 2 days or 1 week. It's just a stupid thing to say. It's going to scare off more clients than you're going to react, that are going to listen to you. And you can't close in 2 days because it takes 2 weeks to get title anyway. Okay. So again, you're simply asking if they are or were thinking of selling. That's it, right? And people are going to come at you hard and tell you to go to hell. Did you see a for sale sign in my thing? I get that shit all the time. So you say, I don't know if you're selling. I'm calling to ask you if you're selling. If they're not, then I'm not going to bother you. Now, if they say yes, you want to take them through a qualifying script. I have a great qualifying script. If anybody wants it, I'll give my email at the end. You can send me an email request. I'll send you the script. My script is golden. I should charge $10,000 for my script. It's so good. If anybody wants it, I give it away. If they say no, you move on to the next target. People who say yes are prospects. That's someone who's raised their hand and said, I'm interested in selling. That to me is a prospect. When you take them through the script and they qualify, because let's say one of the 4 pillars of motivation, that's Brent Daniels' TTP thing. So it's either time, which is what we discussed, either they need to close fast or they want to close late. Reason, they have a really good reason to sell. I bought a house once from a guy who really needed to sell his house because he had to put up, he needed to bail out somebody in another state and they wouldn't take his house as collateral. And he just needed, I think it was his son. So time, reason, condition, if the house is in terrible condition or, that kind of thing. And also price. You want to try and get a price from them. Sometimes they want a low price. That is a lead. Somebody who's a prospect who's qualified becomes a lead. Leads all need to be captured in the system. So despite what you've been told, right? And we go on this misconception, I'm going to buy a list, I'm going to call the list. Most people are going to answer the phone. Most people are going to have a house to sell. And most people are going to want to sell immediately. None of that's true, right? Most of your numbers you're going to skip trace are going to be wrong numbers. Most of the right numbers are going to be people who don't have no interest in selling a house or don't have a house. Most of the people who are interested in selling have no interest in selling to an investor. Most people who sell to an investor are not going to sell it to you. You got to go through a huge funnel of crap. You got to kiss a lot of frogs to get that prince. So even leads, right? Even someone says is qualified, right? They tell you I have a good reason, or I want a low price, or my house is terrible. They're not going to sell to you immediately, right? They're not. It's going to require follow-up, and you need to capture their information. You can start with a free Google sheet to capture it, right? That's saved in the cloud and works great. You can search it. Eventually, when you get a lot of leads, you can think about paying for a CRM. But I helped someone recently, and he said, I have an amazing system. I take every lead and write it down and put it in a folder. That's not a good system, right? Because this person may call you back a year later, a month later, and you're going to need to be able to search quickly to find the address and the name. Paper is not good. You need something searchable. So a Google Sheet is fine when you start, but you need to capture that information. Now, follow-up, right? Most leads are not going to sell right away, as we said. Proper follow-up really separates the successful people from the unsuccessful. Most investors give up right away when a lead wants too much or isn't highly motivated or tells them I'm not selling in 3 months. I do not. I put those people in the system. We follow up with them automatically and manually all the time, right? I don't want 30 days to go by where a lead is not called by someone, and usually they're touched by a text or an email if I have an email address in between that. Motivation and situations change all the time, right? A guy has a tenant and he's making money and he only will sell it for a crazy high price, and then the tenant stops paying and he starts doing the math and he says, whoa, I need to get rid of this right now. And then they call back and say, let's negotiate, right? Major repairs come up. A guy gets a roofer come in. I just closed on a house in Merrick. The only reason why they sold it to me at a discount was because they brought in a contractor who completely reamed them and told them that it was going to be like an insane number to fix very minor things. And they didn't want to deal with it. And that's why they sold it to me more than $100,000 less than they could have sold it retail. They felt that if any retail buyer was going to require that stuff, and they didn't want to put that money into this house, they wanted a bigger house, and that's why I bought it. So major repairs come up, or even minor repairs come up. That can happen. People get sick. People die. Buyers drop out. So somebody wanted a high price. The buyer drops out, and now he's desperate. These things happen all the time. If you follow up, you will get deals. Really, relentless, consistent follow-up keeps you at the front of mind so that when the lead decides to sell, they think of you and sell to you. I just got a call from a woman that I saw in 2018. I stay in touch with her every month, and she called me this month and said, I want to sell it. What is that? Over 3 years I've been talking to her. That's just the way it is. And I have a bunch of people now who told me, I still reach out every month, and they tell me, don't worry, when I sell, I'm going to sell to you. That is what you need to have. You need to have people like that in your pipeline. I bought that 11 Walter Place in, where is it, Farmingdale? Also, that guy, I've been talking to him for about 3 years. So marketing is momentum-based, right? It's hard to start, but when it gets rolling over time, that's when the deals come through. So getting over the initial hump is the hardest part. Now, appointments. So this is a big topic of discussion, right? There's a lot of people doing this virtually where they don't really go to the house at all. But when I have a qualified lead and they want to sell, my leads manager tries to set an appointment for me to go and meet them in person. And I do this for 2 reasons. 1, I feel I have a much better chance of closing if I meet them face to face. And 2, I want to see the property so I can give an estimate the repairs. Me personally. Now, can I do that with pictures? Maybe. Can I call up a service like BPO Photo Flow to take 50 pictures of the property and get an idea if there's a problem? Probably. But I like to meet face to face. Now, I want to eventually not meet people face to face. I want to hire somebody else to do it. But when you're starting, I would say go on as many appointments as you can for the reasons I just gave. Now, there are people who do it virtually and they don't meet with sellers in person, and you can choose whatever works for you, right? There's a give and take, right? And the people who do it virtually will tell you openly, I probably close less deals by not meeting them face to face. But I'm able to talk to so many more people by not getting in my car and driving to freaking, I mean, I've driven out pretty far. I've driven out to crazy places. Well, think of all the time I could have been sitting in my office calling people instead of driving. So it's different ways to look at it. You can do whichever one you want. And then you got to make an offer, right? So either at the appointment, soon after the appointment. I don't make offers at the appointment. Okay. And you're going to hear people throughout the internet in other states say that's crazy. Because for them, there's a tremendous amount of competition in most areas of United States. I mean, there are hot areas like Dallas, Phoenix, Vegas. If you're talking to somebody on a list, he's probably talking to 20 other investors. And they feel like if I don't make an offer, someone else is going to take this property from me. For me, I would say more than half the time, I'm the only guy making an offer. Because the beauty of New York is that there's very little competition here because nobody teaches how it's done and nobody understands it. So I wait till the next day. I really got to figure out the numbers sitting at a computer. I comp out the property again, and that's how I do it. Now, the basic offer formula for a wholesale deal is what we said before. So it's 70% of ARV, the after repaired value, minus repairs. That's what I'm basically trying to buy it at. And when I sell it, I'm trying to sell it at 80% of ARV minus repairs. So just like we said before, most fix and flippers will go up to 80%. Again, you only need one. And I'm wholesaling a property now in Bethpage where I'm getting a lot of lowball offers, but I already got 2 offers where I'm making 20 grand. So I'm going to get those up or new offers. So again, you only need one, right? And everybody's ARV and repairs are going to be different. So it's not such a big deal. So I didn't really deal with building a buyer's list. Maybe I'll do that on another topic. But it's not hard to find a buyer if you get a deal under contract at a good price. It's really easy. And no one should spend 1 second building a buyer's list before they get a deal. Right? The hard part of this the hard part of this business is getting a deal at a discount. That's the hard part. Everything else is easy. Getting the money for it is easy. Finding a buyer for it is easy. All those things are easy. If you get a deal, all those things will come. The money will come to you. The buyers will come to you. Simple. Getting that seller to say yes and getting that deal under contract is the hard part. So the lead really should always say no to your offer, the first offer, right? I'm always going to come in a little bit lower than I can. And if they say yes, you might have missed something. So you got to really look again. The only deals I ever had that no, that's not true. I had deals that got screwed up because I over improved them or I screwed them up. But the worst deals I've ever done, the lead said yes right away, and I didn't think, hey, maybe I'm wrong, and I was too high. That's the truth. So almost all my deals get done via negotiation or follow-up after the first offer. And you can't get discouraged if you have a hard time getting a deal. It's a simple business, but it's not an easy business, right? If it was easy, everyone would do it. If you get a seller today to say yes, then you start the attorney process, which we spoke before. At that point, he needs to get an attorney to send the contract to your attorney. We went long. Conclusion. Okay, so fixing, flipping, or wholesaling both have pros and cons to them, right? I prefer wholesaling, but I still close on deals all the time for various reasons. I can't get them cheap enough for whatever reason, or I can't find a wholesale buyer. Wholesaling requires marketing. It's a huge part of the business. Getting your first deal is not easy at all. That's why a vast majority of people who get into this business do not last and never get their first deal. I speak to dozens of people every month who tell me they've been doing this for a while and never got a deal. And when I really get into the nitty gritty of how many offers did they make or what they've really done, they haven't done crap. Like someone told me they've been a wholesaler for 2 years, never got a deal. Like, how many offers did you make in 2 years? 4. If you're making 4 offers, guess what? I probably have to make more than 4 offers to get a deal. And I know what I'm doing. And I am a real wholesaler. So you got to be making a lot of offers to get deals. Being consistent, understanding realistic timelines, and required effort can be the difference between success and failure. So I tell the story all the time. When I switched from fix and flipping to wholesaling about 5 years ago, I had money from my fix and flip deals that were selling. I knew what I was doing, and I was spending a tremendous amount on marketing. And it took me 8 months to see a penny from it. I was spending $20,000 a month. I had spent $160,000 to get my first deal. So the idea that anyone is going to show up and just buy a list and get a deal quickly is not really likely. It's possible, but it's unlikely. You really should be thinking in terms of 12 to 18 months till you get a deal. Now, you should be getting some leads during that process, but it takes a while, and you need to have realistic expectations. Okay. So I sell a course. If anybody's interested, you go to howtoflipnewyork.com/course. There's a discount on it. It's got February up here. That coupon's still good. REIA 10 off if you're interested in it. I just launched the coaching run. So I had been coaching people unofficially, but I keep getting asked to coaching. So I launched officially a coaching program. If you go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com, you'll see everything. I'm not going to get into it here, but you'll see how much it costs and what you get, why it's different, why you might want it. If you don't want it, it's fine. So go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com for information on that. We're going to have an in-person meeting in a week from tonight, March 18th, from 6 to 6:30 p.m. at 14 Lynbrook Avenue in Lynbrook. It's a deal that I am wholesaling, and we're going to talk about it. So I'll put that on the meetup group right away. And our next virtual meeting will be in a little over a month, April 15th, because it's a Passover holiday. Before that, I'm going to be in Florida, and that'll be the same 6 to 7:30 p.m. So again, both those I'll put up on Meetup right away. So if you're interested in going, you can go. These are some free resources. I have a YouTube channel, which is called, God damn it, it's called Flipping and Wholesaling in New York, not Wholesaling and Flipping in New York. I never change a slide. It's ridiculous. But I give out a lot of free content. I post 5 times a week. Just please subscribe. You get a lot of information. I basically give away everything for free. I have a Facebook page, which is called Real Property Buyers. You get updates on whatever I'm doing, everything I'm selling, every deal that closes pretty much gets updated there if I remember. There's a member of my mastermind called John Martinez. He is the premier sales trainer for real estate investors. His website is called MidwestRev.com. He gives away a lot of great stuff there for free. And then another member, the guy who started the mastermind, is named Mike Hambright. He has a Flip Nerd podcast, which he's been doing for like 6 years. I think he's got 1,600 episodes. He's got great stuff there. His stuff mostly does not apply to New York unless he's interviewing me, but it's good stuff there, and it's great information. It's free. If you haven't already signed up for this meetup group, I assume you have, but just go to meetup.com/Nassau-REIA, and you get updates on all our meetings, the live one next week and the virtual one in a month. And now it's time for questions and answers. So I'm going to go through what I see. First question. If you have money to get into your first deal, should you fund that 100% purchase price and renovation and then try to raise funds a second deal, or divide your personal funds across 2 or 3 deals and borrow the gaps? I believe very, very strongly you should not use your own money. Not use your own money. You should use as much of other people's money as possible. And I know there are people who have very different attitudes towards debt. So when I talk to them about hard money and paying 12 or 13%, they start screaming, why am I going to do that if I have the money sitting in the bank? Listen to me very carefully. My first deal that I did, I paid, I think, 16% and 6 points on it. I got ripped off because I don't know what the hell I was doing. But guess what? It was great money. I ended up making a fortune on that deal. And that got me to other deals. So you can't look at these things as a problem. You always want to use other people's money when you can. And just think of the interest and whatever percentage you're going to pay as cost of doing business. I feel very strongly with that. Keep your money. Because you may need that money for another deal where you can't find a gap funder. I've been finding this estimate is a decent estimate of ARV. Do you think it's a good rule of thumb or definitely not? I think definitely not. Even though it'll be right, it might be right 3 out of 4 times. But that one time where it doesn't take into account that it's across the train tracks, or it doesn't take into account that the house is a knockdown, I think it's a huge mistake to use the free resources. I really do. I think everybody should be licensed or have PropStream. Those are the only ways I would ever compound a property that I would buy. Richard asks, how many platforms are you using? CRM market. I'm using a ton of platforms. God, so many to mention. It's crazy. Naman, how do you close? Did you close on Merrick yet? If so, can you share the address? Yeah, I closed on it. So it's a weird house. It has 2 addresses. The address is, it's on Montauk Avenue in Merrick, and it's either 2645 Montauk or 47 Montauk. It has 2 numbers. So it says, I mean, I could put into Waze 2645. It'll take me there. But like when I called the utility companies to take over the service, it was 47. And I knew it had two addresses. That's probably Merrick. I closed on it. People left. And I'm doing a little bit of work to it now. Do you think sellers on Long Island will be open to a virtual offer? I don't know. I've never done it, and it's possible, but I don't know the answer to that. Naman asks, for newbies, how many offers to get a deal, roughly speaking? It's a tough thing to say because sometimes newbies don't know what the hell they're offering, and sometimes they're not figuring out their numbers right. They're not presenting the offer right. The way you present an offer is a big deal. I completely changed the way I present an offer. I used to present an offer like, hi, I don't think I can pay more than $300,000 for this. And I would get crazy backlash. You bastard, I knew you were trying to steal the property. I present the offer in a very, very psychologically fucked up way. I make them beg me for the offer, right? I start apologizing. I'm like, I don't want to embarrass you. I have a number. I know it's not what you want. I always anchor low. So let's say I want to offer $300,000. I go, if I can find a comp lower than that, I'll say I was shocked to see properties were trading to investors at $250,000. If that's not true, then I'll just say, listen, I would love to buy this property at $200,000, but I know that's not going to work. And then I listen to see what they say, because sometimes they'll go, So I anchor low, and then I come in and make them beg me for the offer. So how you present an offer has tremendous effect on how many you're going to convert. So I don't know how many. If you get good, it's going to be less. If you stink, it's going to be more. Deborah asks, what is the site again for coaching? It's I can type it in here. It's coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. flipnewyork.com. That's the site. Muhammad asks, do you fund money for wholesale deals for a cut? If yes, how much? So I'll co-wholesale. I do a lot of JV deals now with coaching students. So that's really why I coach, right? I'm not gonna say I hate coaching. I like helping people, but coaching I don't charge a lot for my coaching. It's like an embarrassment how little I charge for my coaching. The only reason I do coaching is because usually the students end up doing a couple of deals with me, and that's where I make my money. So yeah, I do it, and I put up my money, and we have a standard agreement where if we wholesale it, it's a 50-50 split, and if I have to close on it, then it's usually 60-40 in my favor. That's it. I do that all the time. So if you have a deal, feel free to call me. Alice asks, do you have a good real estate attorney recommended in Nassau County? Yes. My attorney's name is Robert Wisnicki. I'll give his office number. He is amazing. I highly recommend him. I've been through other attorneys. I can tell you he's awesome. This is a great guy, Robert Wisnicki. I'll give you his main office in Queens, 718-491-764. That's in the chat. Naman asks, what if the financing really kills the ROI? And do you have personal funds to do it and increase the profit? Again, who cares? Here's the way I look at it. If I can do 5 deals with other people's money and make less on all 5, I'm probably going to make more money than using my money and doing only 1 deal. So the ability to do more deals to me is more valuable. That is more value to me than how much I'm going to lose by paying interest on the financing. I really believe that. I really believe that. I feel very strongly that using other people's money, because what happens, I promise you, if you use your own money, I promise what's going to happen is you're going to be tapped out, and then an opportunity is going to come to you, and you're going to be like, shit, I wish I had some of that money because I need to put that up for an EMD or something like that. Keeping the cash is a big deal. Having the ability to close a lot of deals or infinite amount of deals because other people are going to front the money to you is such a warm blanket. Its value is amazing. You don't have to think. You go out and just offer, make offers, and if those deals come in when you're not expecting them, you have a place to put them. Don't use your own money. Somebody's coming in. Matthew says, "Can you please post your contact info?" Sure, my contact info. My office number. Number. Anybody can call me in my office if you want. Just leave a message. I'm not always here. And my email address is Pinter. I don't know why it's not typing. There it is. So yeah, this is my contact information. Anybody can reach out. Sheikh Sadman Amir says, let's say after the seller agrees a certain price, what will be the very next step from my side? Who should I contact to proceed if I don't have sufficient funds myself? Probably you can contact me or you can contact somebody else who has the money. I mean, anybody. If it's a deal, I'll be happy to go into it with you, but you also can listen, you want to sort of be ready when you're doing this and speak to people who have money, and a lot of them are going to, if you tell them, hey, I can borrow your money and pay you 10% on it, a lot of them are going to be willing to do it. So you should have access to the money beforehand. But if you find a deal and it's a great deal, you can certainly call me. Michael asks, while calling a list of lists, you have skip traced around 15,000 numbers and only have less leads coming 5 weeks into calling your list versus the first week or two. Less leads coming in. I don't know what you're doing exactly. If you're doing the same marketing, there's going to be ups and downs. It happens all the time. I've seen things like that happen all the time. Muhammad asks, you were talking about a guy who has 600 episodes interviewed at some. Can you name his chat? Yeah, his name is it's Flip Nerd. It's called Flip Nerd. The Flip Nerd podcast. Great guy, Mike Hambright. Super honest guy. Doesn't but he doesn't do things in New York. You can see my episode. I was interviewed there a couple times. Do you have your own contracts? Oh boy. Alexis, you must come in late because I said that's a question I get all the time. No, we don't use our own contracts in New York. The contract gets generated by the seller's attorney. No buyer or flipper or wholesaler in New York brings a contract to the closing. Alex says, do you have a good real estate agent to help me to buy, sell, or rent a house? Yeah, you can use me. I'm a licensed broker. Matthew says, what if you use an FHA loan or FHA do with REIA loan before hard money? So be very careful with this, Matthew. I was in the mortgage business for 17 years. The only guy I know who went to prison was the guy who did FHA loans and fucked around with FHA loans. FHA is basically an insurance company, but if you screw around with FHA loans are only for owner-occupied properties. They are not for investment properties. You are not allowed to get an FHA loan on a property you don't live in. So can you say you were planning to live in it? Yes. Can you say you changed your mind, you sold it? Yeah. You can get away with that once or twice, but if you got a multiple FHA loans coming up, someone's going to notice and you're going to be in trouble. So I would say do not use FHA loans. And by the way, FHA and a 203K loan is one of the biggest pains in the ass you'll ever see in your life. Okay, the amount of paperwork you need for that is crazy. And the reason why is because in the 80s, there was a lot of fraud with that. Because the FHA was just throwing out draws to contractors who were the buyer's brother, that kind of thing. So they make them very hard to come by. And I know they seem like a great deal, but it's not an easy loan to do, and you should not be doing it unless it's going to be an owner-occupied property. Indira, you can self-direct your own 401k to lend back to yourself. Absolutely. I mean, not to lend to yourself for other things, but your self-directed IRA can lend to an entity that buys real estate. Real estate is considered a security. So your 401k owns index funds, right, in the stock market. Real estate is exactly the same thing. So your self-directed 401k can buy a property, and it can lend on a property too. Who do you use for his SDRA? I use Specialized Trust. Oh, they're good guys. I'm typing them in now. Where are we? Indira G is Brian Gardner. What is up with that, Brian? I just bought a house from an Indira Gotti Potty. I thought she was on. Thank you very much, Brian, for giving me anxiety. No Facebook? I don't know what that means. Okay, Alice asks, can you help me rent a house? And one time I sent you an email, you didn't reply. I'm sorry about that. Of course I can help you rent a house. Just call me in the office. I left my number there before. Any other questions? We're at 7:05. So this is my rule after 7 o'clock. I'll stay on until 7:30 if the questions keep coming. But if I don't get questions for 5 minutes, I'm just going to hang up on everyone. Which is fine because my neck is killing me. So we got some more questions. Okay. Tony is looking for deals to buy and hold. Okay. Everybody can look for Tony if they're looking to buy and hold properties in Suffolk County. Great. What else? Richard gives the price at peak. How do you handle the sellers who want too much? Yeah, sellers always want too much. I mean, I don't let it bother me. Every seller wants too much. I mean, let's be honest. Every seller wants too much. So you have to make your offer. You have to make your offer, and you've got to follow up with the offer and see where they're going to go with it. Every seller wants too much. Even when prices are at the lowest, but sellers want too much. You got to make an offer that you're comfortable making. You make the offer, and that's it. I mean, I have made offers to people, and I thought there was never a chance in a million years that they would sell to me. Like they wanted 600, and I made an offer of 300. And sometimes they come back and buy it. I recently bought a house. It was listed on the MLS, which is usually a death knell for a deal. I mean, I tell sellers. She told me the property's listed. I looked it up. I go, it was in West Hempstead. She listed it for $700,000, and I'm like, lady, you don't need to sell it to me. All you got to do is drop the price to 600, and you'll sell it. She goes, no, come by and look at it. I looked at it. I said, I can't pay more than $450. She sold it to me for $450. I owned it for 2 days, and I put it out. And 2 days later, I found the buyer for $575. There was an issue there, and she wasn't so honest with me about it, but I figured out what it was, and that's it. You just got to make your offers where you can buy, and you make a lot of them, and people will agree. Muhammad asks, so when do you JV to fund the wholesale deal, but you end up closing on it, and you are going to do 60-40, so the other guy still doesn't have to bring money? If not, how does it actually work? Yeah, that's how it works. So I'm going to fund it. If it's a wholesale deal, I'm not really funding much. I'm just funding the down payment, and then I'll find a buyer for it. But if I have to close on it, I got to fund a lot more money. So then it goes 60-40 in my favor. But again, you don't have to put up any money. So understand, every contract I go into, I have to either assign the contract or I have to close. There's no outs in the contract unless there's a title issue, which is very rare. So that's another thing people don't tell you when they teach you how to do this in other states. Because in other states, they go, wholesaling is risk-free. You just get into contract with a 30-day inspection contingency, and if you can't find a buyer, you just walk away from the contract. There's no walking away from the contract in New York. That doesn't happen, right? They'll take your deposit lickety-split. I mean, it's not as simple as that, but Lolita Rogers, you also fund for flicks and flips. So I don't put up my own money for flicks and flips, but I do lend. I do some lending for fix and flips. So sure, yeah, if you need, I can do the hard money piece of it, 80%, depending on your situation. But yeah, or I can direct, if I can't do it or I don't want to do it, I'll give you names of people that will do it. Alexis asks, I have a motivated seller, but I don't really know where to start. If I contact you, would you help? If so, how would it work out eventually closes? So Alexis, I don't think you've been paying attention, Alexis, but yes, it works out simply. We do a standard JV agreement per deal. You can call me on this deal. I'll let you know if it's a deal. And if it works out and the seller says yes, and we wholesale the deal, it's a 50-50 split. If I have to close on it, it's 60-40 in my favor. I got here at 6:40. Sorry, I missed a lot to work. You did miss a lot, Alexis, but I will still answer your questions. Lolita asks, how much do you charge in interest? I usually charge 10% when I lend, but if you borrow less than the max, then I'll charge 9%. So I usually charge 9 or 10%, and there's 2 points in it. 2 points. That's what I usually charge when I lend. It's not bad. It's not the greatest. What's the max? The max is usually going to be 65% of the appraised after repair value. We're going to have to do an appraisal, and up to 65% of that. But these are very general questions, and I need a lot more specific information. So feel free to call me, and I'll be happy to answer them. So if you have a specific deal, I'll be happy to let you know. That was the last question. The clock is starting. By the way, you can also unmute yourself and ask, unmute yourself one at a time. I'll be happy to answer. Naman asks, with the market hot, how hard are you qualifying before the appointment? I don't know what that means. How hard am I qualifying? I don't know what that means.
Hey, Michael.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So what I'm trying to say is right now prices are high. Everybody thinks they're going to make $1 billion selling their house. So are you guys qualifying stronger over the phone, like going through those 4 pillars and relying on that a lot more before you book an appointment? Or are you still willing to just basically get out there and get in front of the seller no matter what?
I don't go to the seller unless I feel like they check off at least one of those 4 pillars, or it's a possible listing and they don't have somebody to list it with, because I'll take listings. So if I don't feel, I haven't changed anything with the market high, and I'm not going to change anything when the market goes down. We qualify the same, right? And anybody who's qualifying, my leads manager knows they got to check off one of those boxes, either one of the four pillars, or they will have to want retail and not have somebody to list with, and then I'll try and pitch them on listing with me. If it doesn't meet that, I may tell her to set the appointment, but then she'll tell me and I'll make another call and try and dig a little deeper. If there's no reason or it's too far, I may not even go on it. But nothing's changed with the market. Nothing changes when the market goes up or down. Let me tell you, when the market goes down eventually, what's going to happen is we're going to have to figure in like a reduction in our ARVs. So we're going to have to offer lower, but we're going to have so many more deals coming to us. When the public finally accepts the fact that we're in a down market, and we're not in a down market yet, but when one day when we are, and then finally 8 months after that, the media will get wind of it. And when sellers believe that the longer they hold their property, the less they're going to get for it, I'm going to have a lot more deals coming in than I have now, for sure. Right now, unless you live under a rock, you believe that the longer you hold your property, the more it's going to be worth. I mean, for the past 13 years, everything's gone in one direction, and that's up. But that's going to change, and when it changes, I'm looking forward to it because I think I'm going to do a lot more deals.
So wait, so the deals you're finding right now, so why are these folks selling to you, right? Is it still the same theme? Like these people are just
always the same reasons. They're always the same reasons. Some kind of issue with that property or some kind of issue with them. It's always the same reasons. Those reasons never change, right? People lose their job, people die, people go into foreclosure, people can't afford. I mean, these same things happen all the time. Sometimes it's something as stupid as like they had a terrible experience with a realtor and they never want to list it with a realtor anymore. They want to sell it directly to an investor. It could be a lot of different things, but the reasons never change. They haven't changed for the past 30 years and they're not going to change in 100 years from now. It's always the same things and you don't have to worry about it. Lolita, I do fund deals out of state. I just lent money on a deal in Iowa. Alexa says, what's the benefits of having a real estate license in wholesaling? Okay. I didn't say this yet, Alexis, but I'm going to tell you. I've done this other weeks. There are 3 reasons why anybody who does what I do should be licensed. Number 1 is to have multiple listing service access. That is the best way to compound a property. I told you PropStream is almost as good. It's not as good. So you should have that. Number 2 is you want to be able to list your own deals, and you're allowed to list wholesale deals also if the situation calls for it. You just can't say that you own the property. You have to list yourself as a contract vendee. I checked that out with the real estate board. It's 100% fine. Or if you're fix and flipping, you want to eventually list your deal on a retail basis. So either wholesale or retail, you want to list it yourself. And the third reason is because if you go on enough appointments, and I can tell you this firsthand, you are going to come into contact with people who just want to list. I've had people who tell me I want to sell. When I got there, they're like, I want to sign a listing agreement. Now, if you're licensed, you can now monetize that lead. Even if you're not going to do anything to it, right? Even if you're just going to take it and give it to some other guy and split the commission with him. That's just free money as far as I'm concerned. Now, if you actually do the listing, you can make real money. I average about $8,000 to $9,000 on my listings. Guess what? In a lot of places in the country, that's a wholesale deal. Right? I know guys who do tons of deals in Phoenix, and they shoot for $8,000 for every wholesale deal. I make more than that on a listing. So, to me, it's just stupid to say to either there's people who teach that you should knock realtors when you do this. Oh, realtors suck. They're going to rip you off in commission. It's foolish, right? 90% of the deals in any given market, on average, are going to sell via realtors. So for those 3 reasons, I think to A, get access to the MLS, B, to list your own deals, and C, to take listings when they come about. Like you're spending money on the marketing, time or money on the marketing. If someone comes to you and says, I just want to list, I need to sell, take a listing. I took a listing yesterday. Why not? Who cares? Now, I have a full-time disposition manager who's going to run the listing. He's awesome. So I don't have to sit at open houses, and I can understand why you wouldn't want to. But if you don't want to, find some other young putz agent and let him do all the work and split the commission with you. It's just thousands of dollars that you leaving off the table. So everybody should be licensed, in my opinion. Those are the benefits. Right? And I know some people out there teach that there's this conflict of interest because in certain states they look at it as well. If you are an agent, you should be using your fiduciary responsibility and you should only be listing and you should never buy a property at a discount. That is just complete and absolute bullshit. I've never, ever bought a house from somebody who had the option of listing. I mean, everybody has the option of listing, but they didn't want to list. For whatever reason, they didn't want to list. So there's no breach of fiduciary duty by being licensed and buying properties. I tell people all the time. I tell people all the time. They say, "What do you do?" I say, "I do two things. I buy houses that need work. I fix them up and I sell them. And I also am a traditional realtor, if for houses that are in good shape." And I've told hundreds of people at appointments, "Listen, you should not sell this house to a realtor. You should not sell this house to an investor. Not to me or any investor." I go, "You're going to leave $100,000 on the table. It's stupid. Go list this house and squeeze the money out of it." Assuming they're not in a rush and assuming the house is in good shape. People don't really understand. Unless you're taking the test next month. Great. Definitely should pass the test. There's a great book you can get at a library called Cram for the Exam that pretty much has everything you need for the test if you want to look at it. And a lot of libraries have it if you want, or you can buy it on Amazon. Cram for the Exam, the New York State real estate, blah 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 blah. Okay, we're 7:17. We have no more questions. I'm going to give it a few minutes. If anybody wants to unmute and talk, or anybody wants to type, I'm here to answer. Doesn't have to be about anything we talk about today either. I don't care.
Hey, Mike, I got a question.
Yes. Who is this? Who's VSJ?
Joe. My name is Joe.
Hey, Joe.
With VSJ Buys Homes.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the big problems that I find in New York, when I do get deals, it's usually a tenant issue. A lot of these homes have tenants.
Yeah.
And a lot of buyers don't want to buy with tenants. How do you solve that problem?
So I will tell you what's happened to me over the last 4 weeks, right? I went into contract on 3 properties that had a tenant, and I felt there was no way in hell I could wholesale the property with a tenant.
Right.
Right now, I got more money wholesaling all those houses than I even dreamed of. Right now, we're in a crazy situation. So I will tell you that, I'm just muting you. There's a lot of people who buy at auction. There's probably 600 times more people who buy at auctions, who go to Nassau County every Tuesday or Suffolk County every Friday or Queens every Friday, than buy direct to seller. Those guys haven't had a chance to get a deal in a year, right? Courts closed in March. We're in March now.
Right.
So these guys are so desperate for deals. Now, understand something. If you're an auction buyer, you buy occupied properties all the time. I would say 4 out of 5 properties that are showing up on foreclosures have the owners or a tenant in them. So they're completely comfortable with that. And I went to every single auction for 4 years in Nassau County every Tuesday. And I took very, very copious notes about every deal that sold. I still have those notes. And I thought when I started wholesaling that I had the greatest buyers list ever. And guess what? None of those guys would even look at the deals I had, ever. None of them. And they all, I think what they thought is they had seen me buy a lot of properties and just assumed if I was wholesaling it, that something was wrong with it. And I knew this guy would buy a cape in Elmont for $300,000, and I would bring him a cape for $250,000 and he wouldn't buy it. But now starting January, all those auction buyers are begging me for deals nonstop. They are out of inventory. They have flipped and sold all the properties they bought in March and February from last year. They don't even have an idea of how to go direct to seller, and they don't have a clue as to how to get deals. And these guys are buying occupied properties.
So, Mike, did you have to change your formula because now that you got to account for the tenant, the expense for the tenant?
I always have accounted for the tenant. Sorry. I've always accounted for the tenant.
How do you do your expense for the tenant? So
now it's harder, right? Because of the moratorium, you don't know how long it's going to take. I usually figure on 4 months of getting the tenant out. Now, sometimes it's much sooner. It's very rarely longer. In Nassau, it used to take me about 4 months to get a tenant out. So I figured 4 months of holding costs, and I put a little cushion in there in case the tenant actually got evicted. Because when they get evicted, that's when it's expensive. Because then you got to pay for a mover. The rest of the eviction process is not that expensive. You pay your attorney fee, you pay the court fees, a few $100, the sheriff's a few $100. So That's what I figured. Now it's more complicated because the moratorium is due to end at the end of May, but who the hell knows what's going to happen after May? First of all,
All right, they may extend it.
Cuomo might extend it. Second of all,
Mm-hmm.
the courts are going to be freaking nuts after that. I mean,
Packed.
a year.
Right.
So I figure maybe on 8 months now, 8 months extra of holding costs, 8 to 9 months of holding costs. That's what I'll figure in. I've been getting bigger spreads. So when a property's occupied, I usually give the seller two numbers. I go, this is the number I'll give you if it's vacant, and this number I'll give you if the tenant's still there. Most of the time, they're gonna. The reason why they're selling is because they don't want to deal with the tenant, and they're gonna go to the lower number. But I used to give that spread of maybe. I used to figure out the numbers. Maybe it was 10,000. Lately, I've been going more, like 20 or even 30,000, because I don't know. It really depends on how big of the purchase price is, because that'll determine what the closing costs are. So. I'll figure 8 or 9 months because I figure it's gonna take longer. And then my go-to is always to offer the tenant money right away. That's the first thing. But I'd say half the tenants don't even engage with me, especially if they're not paying. I got a situation now. I'm closing next week on a property in Massapequa, and it's got two guys in there, and one guy is like begging me for money, and I'm like, I will not make a deal with you unless the other guy is in on the deal, and the other guy will not engage with me, just will not talk.
So, Mike, you only do Nassau County and Suffolk County? You don't do the 5 boroughs?
I look at deals there here and there, but I usually
more Nassau County, Suffolk
Yeah, because
County.
listen, everything I've told you only applies to Nassau and Suffolk, because an uncontested eviction in the 5 boroughs can take 18 months, uncontested. And if a guy has a good attorney or he knows how to play the game, it can take longer. So I hate that stuff. So.
Mike, you're a genius because you're going untested, because nobody's doing that in Nassau County or Suffolk County, and if they are, they don't have the capital to compete.
There's not a lot of competition. There's also
no,
less.
It's not.
There's also less
it's
competition.
Expensive, Mike. It's very expensive. Just like, okay, let me give you a prime example, which you already know, but just for the listeners. If you do 3 deals in New York, minimum, your earnest money is going to be about $30,000 minimum. They're going to want at least $10,000 on that contract. So just for you to do 3 deals in New York, you need a minimum of $30,000 plus whatever marketing budget you have.
I would agree with that.
It's a totally different game in New York, and that's why you're going untested. So you could pretty much offer whatever you like to these people that's in trouble.
I can't offer whatever I like. I mean, I do.
No. You know what I'm talking
Yeah, but
about. You don't have no competition.
There's much less competition in the whole.
Much less competition.
There's 3 million people on Long Island. I don't think there's more than 4 or 5 guys who are marketing direct to seller in Long Island. I know 9 guys doing serious business in Oklahoma City, which is 600,000 people. So there's a lot less, and there's probably a million guys I don't know. So there's a lot less competition here. It's one of the reasons why I love doing business in New York.
Yeah, but Michael, I'd argue that it's easier to find a deal in Oklahoma City than it is here on Long Island.
No, it's true. It probably is easier to get into contract, but you're going to make a lot less money. Like the properties in Oklahoma. I did a deal in Oklahoma City. The wholesale fee was $9,000. You know what I'm saying? So
I bet.
There's pros and cons on everything.
Hey, can you clarify the holding cost? So let's say a typical rehab is going to cost about 6 months, take about 6 months, right? So you account for that. Now, if you're closing right now in Nassau or Suffolk County with a situation where maybe you don't feel comfortable that you'll be able to cash for keys with the tenant, you're going to add another 6 months?
Or more. Yeah.
So it's like 8 months. So you're going to add, so in total, your spreadsheet's going to account for 14 months holding costs?
Yeah. But again, I'm going to give that guy 2 numbers, and then the other number is going to give me a bigger cushion to pay for all that stuff.
Right, but that's going to be a big gap, right? So let's say it's like $2,500 a month in holding costs, and
it can be more. It can be $4,000 a month. But then, but I'm figuring another 6 to 8 months. I'll probably offer the guy $30,000 less. That'll cover me, and hopefully the guy leaves earlier. Hopefully I give him, if I get a property $30,000 less than I wanted to pay for it, and even if I have to pay $10,000 to leave, everybody's better off. So, and there's a million options. There's a million things that can happen. I bought properties specifically because I took them with the tenants on probably 6 different times. Tenants left before the closing or right after the closing. It was great. That happens too.
So in these deals you just bought, these 3 or 4 deals where they were occupied, that's the kind offer you gave him, which was like 30K less than if it was vacant?
I don't know how much it was. Some of them were smaller than others, but they all got numbers where I figured in I had enough of a cushion in case the tenant I had to get the tenant out.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Lolita asked, "What's your starting number to the squatters?" First of all, it's not always a squatter, and I just found out that I just sold a house where that the guy was not a squatter, not an owner, and not a tenant. He was called a licensee. He was a boyfriend of the owner. He was allowed to move in. He just never left. I don't start the offer. I always get them to give me a number. I mean, I'll if they don't give me a number, I'll say, I'd love to give you $2,000. But when they give a number, it's usually better. So we just did a deal in Lynbrook where I think I would have paid them $10,000, and they came in and said $6,000, and I said no, $5,000. So I always make them give the first number. Sometimes they'll give a crazy number. Like I had people say, I had people do it, and they go, "I want $50,000." I'm like, it's not worth it for me to buy the house if I have to pay $50,000. So sometimes they understand. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes, again, half the people, I'd say half the tenants on properties I bought, even when I try to make them an offer, won't take it. Maybe
So, Michael, in your recent purchases, tenant-occupied purchases, did you get in touch with the tenant before you went into contract?
I will if I can, unless the seller like explicitly tells me not to. I'll try. You want to get an idea. Listen, occasionally these guys are really swift and bright. I just had a deal. What the hell was that deal? I just had a deal where the guy was like, it was one of the deals that I just wholesaled, where the guy was really adamant about the injustices being done to him, and he was. I knew this guy was gonna. If this guy showed up in court, it was not going to be good for me or anybody. So you have to. I always want to get a feel for what the story is with the tenant before I go to contract if possible, because if it's something it may affect my price. I've told the seller, listen, I said I got to tell you something. Drove by the property, guy was outside. He asked me what I'm looking at. This guy is a much bigger problem than you told me he would be. And very often they'll go, "You're right. You're right," and maybe I'll get $10,000 off, that kind of thing. Lolita, you're not concerned they would destroy the property and maybe steal pipes. So I have bought properties where the guy destroyed the property. It happens, but it's rare. Most people won't. I mean, I figure I'm going to need a huge cosmetic. It really depends. There are people. I've had people who weren't paying rent who left the property looking immaculate. You never know, but it's rare. It's a rare occurrence, and they're not going to steal the pipe. I doubt they're going to steal the pipes. I mean, when are they going to steal the pipes? You got to understand something. If they take the pipes out when they're living there, they're not going to have plumbing or heat. So they're going to take it out that day that they leave. Usually doesn't work that way. It's usually just kids running by that are trying to steal copper. But no, I'm not concerned about that. It's very, very, very rare. Guys, we're coming up on 7:30. So if you have any questions,
I said it before, Michael. Pinter for president.
Yeah, right. Right. Thank you for that. Whatever that's worth.
I'll be your VP.
Sure. So I guess we're done. So I want to thank you all for coming. Anybody who wants to contact me, I put my contact information before, so my email address and phone number, you can call me in the office. If anybody needs help or wants a script, just shoot me an email and I'll be happy to provide it. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.